Assassin's Creed Odyssey is like Marmite to the Assassin's Creed community. You either love it or you hate it. It's either better than all of the other Assassin's Creed games or it isn't even an Assassin's Creed game. However, there is one piece of concept art, right, that has been on my mind ever since I saw it, and it seems to be from very early in Odyssey's development. And it is sort of implying that the game was supposed to be a spin-off at first. So it's a picture of Cassandra and Alexios showing different playstyles. One of them looks like more of a fighter character and the other one looks very stealthy, and it says Odyssey, an Assassin's Creed adventure. It's not even in the Assassin's Creed font. It's a totally brand new logo, and it sort of implies that Odyssey was meant to be its own start of something new. It was meant to be a spin-off series to the mainline titles. And I just think to myself, first of all, why was this changed? And secondly, could it have been a good thing? Was it a good idea to make Odyssey just Assassin's Creed Odyssey, to make it a mainline title? Or should Ubisoft have made it its own sub-series within Assassin's Creed as a brand? And I'm going to argue that I think they should have. I think concretely, Assassin's Creed Odyssey would have had so much better of a reception, and I think both sides of the fandom would be happy if it was considered a spin-off, because the reason people don't like Assassin's Creed Odyssey is because, first of all, they sort of put themselves at a disadvantage because they set the game so far in the past. Like, even the game called Assassin's Creed Origins is set really far back when you consider it's 1,000 years before the original Assassin's Creed. So you think, well, this has to be the origin game. This is the origin story of the Brotherhood. And yet somehow the game after that is set so many... It's like another 400 years back, I think. So it's even further back than Origins, which makes you question, well, is there even going to be any semblance of assassins in this? Like, what is the point? What is the point of going so far back that you barely resemble the franchise you're even in to begin with? And I think the reason they did this was to get away from Assassin's Creed, to do their own thing, to still set it within the universe of Assassin's Creed, to use the lore elements like the Isu, the Apples of Eden, but to put their own mythology in the series without tampering with any of the other games. They set it so far in the ancient history that they could have things like Cyclopses and even do their own interpretation of what ancient Greece would have looked like. Like, it's so far back that there are barely any records. And it did take a lot of liberties. You know, the Legacy of the First Blade DLC kind of tried to relate it more to Assassin's Creed, but in my opinion, it ended up doing more damage than good, because that DLC essentially unwrites a lot of the lore that was in AC2, and also some of the stuff, well, it tries to connect itself to Origins and ends up making Origins worse in the process. So the Legacy of the First Blade is a DLC that I just choose not to acknowledge. But the Fate of Atlantis, with this whole crazy simulation, we get to see like Isu in the flesh. You actually interact with a lot of Isu, but the reason that people, you know, didn't like it, and me included, was because they just didn't resemble the Isu that we knew from the series. They were literally fantasy interpretations of the gods, and here's where I think this game being a spin-off helps Ubisoft, not only for the game back then, but could have really benefited Ubisoft now, because the example I want to use as a comparison is Fallout 76. Fallout 76, while not being, you know, exactly the same scenario as Odyssey, I do think it has some similarities that are worth drawing a comparison. This was a spin-off of the mainline series that went in a vastly different direction, not in terms of the mythology of things, but in terms of the experience. Because Fallout 76 was essentially an MMO that was using Fallout 4's mechanics. It was Fallout 4, but online, cooperative. They set it, again, like a prequel. They set it so far away from the other games that it wouldn't interrupt with any of the lore. They added their own lore, like the Appalachia mythology and stuff, and they created their own sort of little pocket universe that they could expand on. The difference is, that was called Fallout 76. Can you imagine if they announced that game and called it Fallout 5? Then I think there would have been chaos. Absolute riots in the street. Because you play Fallout 76, and I've only played a little bit of it because it's Fallout 76, but it's so clearly not a mainline title. It is something else. It's an experiment that they're trying out and they're messing with. And obviously the game's been out for like 7 years now. They've had so much time to create its own thing. The difference is that was a spin-off and they knew it from the get-go. They said loud and clear, this is not connected to the other Fallout games, you know, a bit like Elder Scrolls Online. It's doing its own thing. It's a separate entity. When you call a game Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it creates certain expectations that you are going to, for starters, play as an assassin. First of all, that is the key fundamental. If you're playing an Assassin's Creed game that says Assassin's Creed in big letters, you're expecting to play as an assassin. And so, whether you love or hate Odyssey, that is a barrier that you need to get past first. Then of course you have the mythical aspects that you need to get past, you have certain tweakings of the lore, and I'm going to say it as well, just the basic fundamentals of the gameplay and narrative. This is a game where you make your own choices, you create your own character. You're not playing an action-adventure game focused on narrative or the portrayal of the character you're playing as. Like, Alexios and Cassandra are purposefully written as sort of a blank vessel for you to put the decisions onto, because it's an RPG. And the way an RPG works is that you create your own character. So I think that Alexios and Cassandra are not written like other Assassin's Creed protagonists. You can't really compare them, because they are more so your own portrayal of how you think Cassandra or Alexios should be within the world, and that's why Assassin's Creed Odyssey is an RPG. A lot of people say that Origins is an RPG, and I think to an extent, yes, it was laying the groundwork for Odyssey, but Bayek is still like a character, and it's not like... Origins feels more like a Witcher sort of clone, whereas Odyssey feels like an MMO sort of create your own character sort of thing, where it's going entirely in a different direction. You're not dressing up the character to look like... It's not Bayek in a costume. It's different armor pieces, the whole way the game is designed with different abilities, different paths you can take. You're moulding your own character. Less so in Origins, where you are sort of creating the character of Bayek and building him up with like things like the hidden blade damage, and you're making him into an assassin. And by the end of the DLC, the Hidden Ones, he looks like an assassin, he's fully formed, and, there you go. There's that character complete. Although I wish he wasn't. We need a sequel. We need a sequel to Origin. The thing is with Alexios and Cassandra is they are a blank vessel for the player, and they change the formula of how Assassin's Creed stories have been told. The gameplay is also so much different, and the gameplay does, to me, feel stripped back. It feels like they got the core fundamentals of Assassin's Creed, but they also wanted to do their own thing. A lot of the abilities you get also utilize the Spear of Leonidas, which is a piece of Eden, that grants Alexios and Cassandra Isu abilities. I think in the DLC you even become an Isu, like you can get glowing lines on your skin and stuff, and look, that's a rabbit hole. But I will come to Odyssey's defense on this case, because I think if it was called Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Adventure, this would all be absolutely fine. If Odyssey was a case like Fallout 76, where we were now 7 years into the life cycle of Odyssey, it had loads of major expansions, you play Odyssey, you feel like you're playing an MMO. The camera is really far back compared to previous Assassin's Creed games, and it feels like the way the world is designed, this was a massive piece of land that was designed to have content filled into it for the next 7 years, and to some extent it did, because it continued getting DLC even when Valhalla was out with the crossover stories. They knew that they had designed a game that worked as a standalone and had a better longevity than the previous Assassin's Creed games. And I would argue that if it then spawned its own subculture of Assassin's Creed adventures that take place in that world but aren't about the assassins, and they're their own spin-off where you play as warriors throughout history, that would be a better thing for everyone, because then you could have the fans of Odyssey and Valhalla fully go down that route. Let's get giant, Asgard shit, and you don't even have to explain it, because you can go fully crazy with the fantasy elements. The people who loved Odyssey will, connect with that. They will like the RPG formula, because now we have a case like Assassin's Creed Shadows, which tries to dip its toe in both and ends up being neither. It is not an action-adventure Assassin's Creed game, and it's barely an RPG Assassin's Creed game. It's a weird, just mess of whatever was left over from the previous generation. And this is where, I really hope that this whole plan that we've heard in the past about where Assassin's Creed is heading and the fact that they are not trying to make one game that encompasses everything, they are planning on making loads of little games that sort of cater to different areas of the fandom. We already saw that with Assassin's Creed Mirage. Whether it succeeded or not is not important. The goal there was to attract classic AC fans, and can you imagine if the mainline titles, Assassin's Creed, were like Mirage and they followed the stealth parkour formula that fans had wanted, and you had a whole dedicated team focusing on just that. And then you have Ubisoft Quebec, for example, like let's say the Mirage, the dedicated stealth parkour game. That series is ran by Ubisoft Montreal, and then you let Ubisoft Quebec do their action-adventure games, and they don't even have to release the Assassin's Creed Adventures every year. They can just release one and just keep adding expansions to it for like 4 years. That worked with Valhalla. Valhalla was massively successful, yes, because of the pandemic, but also because it kept getting content added all the time. It had the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC released 2 years after the game had came out, and it still got a massive audience. And that would not have happened if fans did not resonate with the fantasy elements. Like, we have to acknowledge, as an Assassin's Creed fan, as part of this fan base, that there are a lot of people here. I think particularly, this is going to make me sound old, I'm only 24, but I think the younger generation, like the TikTok generation, I go on TikTok and I see creators who love Odyssey, love Valhalla, and they're always going on about the RPG games, and I'm thinking, this is a generation that's been brought up like after the original games. They find the original games boring because they are very slow storytelling compared to the hyper, sort of generation that we have now. That really made me sound old. I'm sorry. I do actually like Odyssey to an extent now, I must admit. It's become a bit of a guilty pleasure just because I have to admit, the game is addictive. It is an addictive game to play. I do resonate with the mechanics. Yes, they are very simple, very straightforward. They're not going to give you much of a challenge, but it's just like mindless sort of grinding. I don't know, there is a part of me that did enjoy Odyssey while I was playing it, even if that was probably Stockholm Syndrome. So I believe with the opportunity to let Assassin's Creed RPG games continue in their own format, and the mainline Assassin's Creed games happen in their own separate series, just keep these separate series. We have, like, an example I was going to bring up is Call of Duty, because Call of Duty is mainly developed by 3 different studios. You've got Treyarch that do the Black Ops games, you've got Infinity Ward that do the Modern Warfare games, and then you've got Sledgehammer, which just do whatever the fuck they can to fill out a year in between the big releases. But you know what you're getting when you know Infinity Ward is behind the next game. You know you're getting a Modern Warfare game, you know you're getting a particular kind of tone, something very serious and obviously set in a modern era. With Treyarch, you know you're getting like the Black Ops stuff, which is sometimes delving more into the science fiction elements, and they sort of get a little bit crazy. Even, back in the old days, they still like tried out different things with zombies. Obviously zombies is in everything now, but initially Treyarch was like the wacky, we're having a little bit of fun, we're messing around with the concept of Call of Duty and we're pushing the limits, whereas Modern Warfare was the gritty, milsim, taking it seriously kind of story. And that kept those two franchises separate. Now, can you imagine? I can't even use Call of Duty as an example. I could have back in like 2015, but I can't right now because every Call of Duty game has lost its identity and they've all become the same game. But back in the day, these studios did create their own separate visions, and just because it was under the moniker of Call of Duty did not restrict these studios to what they wanted to make. And I think, honestly, that Assassin's Creed should be the same. I think we should know when Ubisoft Montreal are making an Assassin's Creed game, we should know what to expect. And when Ubisoft Quebec make an Assassin's Creed game, we should have some sort of preempted expectations of what that game is going to be. And I think the problem is, we saw Ubisoft Quebec, and we sort of didn't know what we were getting. We didn't know if we were getting a direct sort of sequel to Odyssey in like a spiritual sequel to Odyssey with the same gameplay mechanics and all that RPG elements, Or are we going to get something similar to what Ubisoft Montreal used to do, which was more narrative-focused, character-driven stuff? But because of Shadows, and because of Valhalla sort of letting down Montreal's side with what they were known for, I feel like we're in a bit of a void at the minute, where we just don't know. Like, we know Montreal is making the next game, but I don't have any expectations of what Hexia is going to be, because it could be anything at this point. Just because it's Montreal does not set the standard. Like, just because I think Darby McDevitt's writing it, but he wrote parts of Valhalla, and Valhalla, you know, was like 98% bad writing and 2% good writing. So, and obviously he wrote the good parts, but there was a lot of bad in between that. So, are we to say that Hexia is going to be the same? Is Hexia going to be a return to a more traditional Assassin's Creed game? What does that mean for the RPG fans? Are they going to be catered for like a year after? This is where dividing your franchise into different subsections would go a long way to just making fans feel reassured what they're getting. But that's all I'm going to say for this video. I hope that came across well. To be fair, this is an idea I've had for ages. It's literally since I saw that concept art, I was like, why didn't they do this? But let me know in the comments, because I could be totally incorrect. Don't forget to hype the video. I'm going to keep mentioning it because that is something you can do. It's next to the comments. Scroll along, hit hype. You can only do it 3 times a week, so make sure it's on a video that you really enjoy. Hopefully it's this one. I'm not going to say it needs to be this one, but hopefully it's this one. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Assassin's Creed content, and I will see you in the next video.